Why does God allow suffering? This question has troubled minds for centuries and often resurfaces when we experience personal pain or witness tragedy around us. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, illness, or natural disasters, suffering seems to be a part of life that's inescapable, and it raises profound questions about God's love and power. If you're interested in exploring some of life's biggest spiritual mysteries, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into this challenging topic. When we think about suffering, it's natural to question the purpose behind it. Why would an all-loving, all-powerful God allow His creations to go through pain? For some, this question even becomes a stumbling block for faith. They wonder, if God is truly benevolent and omnipotent, shouldn't He prevent suffering? Shouldn't He create a world where only happiness, health, and peace exist? But to address this question deeply, we need to take a closer look at the possible purposes of suffering in the framework of human experience within faith. One common perspective is that suffering serves as a means for personal growth. Across cultures and religions, suffering has often been seen as a catalyst for transformation, forcing us to confront who we are, what we believe, and what truly matters in life. Think about the most difficult experiences in your own life. Often, those moments of hardship bring growth in ways we couldn't have predicted. We develop resilience, compassion, patience, and a deeper understanding of others who face similar struggles. Suffering can strip away superficial concerns and distractions, leading us to reflect on our deeper values and spiritual beliefs. In this sense, suffering has the power to shape our character and bring forth inner strength that might have remained dormant without the challenges. This leads to a second perspective, free will. Many religious traditions teach that God granted humanity free will, giving each individual the ability to make their own choices. In a world governed by free will, humans have the capacity to choose between good and evil, love and hate, compassion and cruelty. Without free will, love and goodness would lose their depth because they wouldn't be chosen freely, they would be automatic. However, free will also means that people are capable of making choices that lead to harm. When humans choose paths that result in cruelty, injustice, or violence, the suffering that follows is often a consequence of these choices rather than a direct act of God. Yet, through the lens of free will, even these forms of suffering can lead to growth and understanding, as we are forced to confront the consequences of our actions. But beyond human choice, what about suffering that seems unrelated to any particular decision, like illness, natural disasters, or other forms of suffering that come without warning or fault? Here, we encounter one of the most profound ideas in theology, the belief that God's wisdom and understanding are far beyond our own. This perspective suggests that, from a human viewpoint, it's natural to desire a life free of suffering. But some theologians argue that God, in His infinite wisdom, allows suffering not out of indifference, but because He sees a greater purpose that we may not be able to comprehend. Just as a child may not understand why a parent allows certain challenges or difficulties, we too may struggle to understand why God permits certain kinds of suffering. From this perspective, it's suggested that our human limitations prevent us from fully grasping the depth of God's plan. We might question why painful experiences occur, but in faith, there is often a trust that these experiences contribute to a larger picture. Suffering, in this view, is not a senseless event but a part of a complex reality that includes opportunities for courage, love, sacrifice, and even redemption. Many people who endure great suffering find that they emerge with a deeper relationship with God, discovering strength, patience, and compassion that they may not have developed otherwise. This brings us to another essential aspect of suffering, its potential to deepen our empathy and compassion for others. When we suffer, we gain a new understanding of what others are going through. It creates a shared human experience that crosses cultural, social, and economic boundaries, reminding us that, no matter who we are, pain and struggle are universal. When we go through our own hardships, we become better equipped to understand and support others facing similar struggles. This can lead to the formation of genuine communities, where people uplift and support each other, creating bonds that are built on empathy and mutual care. Suffering also awakens a desire to respond. Think about how often communities come together in the face of disasters, loss, or illness. Many people feel a powerful drive to help others, to alleviate pain, and to make a difference. In this way, suffering becomes an opportunity for kindness, generosity, and love. Rather than being a sign of God's absence, suffering can actually reveal God's presence through acts of compassion and charity. When people come together to offer comfort, aid, and companionship to those who are suffering, they become instruments of God's love in the world. This is a perspective that sees suffering not as meaningless but as an occasion to reveal the goodness and compassion within humanity. So, could it be that God allows suffering as a way to nurture growth, community, and resilience? Some believe that God does not prevent suffering because it would mean removing the profound lessons and opportunities that come from enduring and overcoming adversity. By facing challenges and enduring pain, we discover parts of ourselves we might never have known otherwise. Our faith is tested, but it also has the chance to grow stronger. Suffering pushes us to confront the limits of our own strength and reminds us of our reliance on something greater than ourselves. But the question of why God allows suffering also touches on another core belief for many, that suffering, in its various forms, is temporary. For those who believe in an afterlife, suffering is seen as a part of our earthly experience, but not the final chapter. It's a part of life's journey that prepares us for a greater existence beyond this world. In this view, suffering, though real and painful, serves a purpose in preparing us spiritually for eternal life. The Apostle Paul speaks of this hope when he says, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." This belief in a redemptive future provides a powerful source of comfort and helps many to bear their current struggles with faith and resilience. For those who may not believe in an afterlife, the perspective of suffering as a path to personal growth, empathy, and compassion remains meaningful. The journey through pain often transforms people in ways that touch the lives of those around them, inspiring others and creating a legacy of strength and kindness. When it comes to suffering, there's no question that it's one of the most challenging aspects of faith and existence. People from all walks of life grapple with it, not just in times of extreme crisis but often in the quieter, personal struggles that mark our daily lives. So, where does God fit into all this? And why would a loving Creator allow such pain? As we continue exploring, let's take a closer look at the concept of suffering as a potential test of faith, character, and resilience. Throughout history, we see examples of individuals who endured incredible hardship yet emerged with renewed faith and strength. Take the story of Job in the Bible, for instance. Job was a man described as blameless and upright, someone who was deeply faithful. Yet he suffered unimaginable losses, his wealth, his health, and even his loved ones. Job's story raises the same question we're exploring today. Why would God allow such suffering, especially to a man who had lived a life of faith and devotion? In Job's case, the suffering he endured tested his faith profoundly. He questioned God, cried out in anguish, and sought answers to his pain. But through this trial, Job's faith was ultimately strengthened. Even in the depths of his suffering, Job maintained his belief in God, despite not understanding the reasons behind his pain. This is where we see one of the mysteries of faith, the idea that suffering can reveal and refine our deepest beliefs. When we are stripped of comforts, distractions, and the familiar, we're often left to confront what we truly believe. Suffering forces us to face questions about meaning, purpose, and our relationship with the divine. This concept of testing is not limited to Job's story. Many people, when facing profound hardship, find that their faith is challenged, but also that it has the potential to grow. There's something about hardship that brings us face to face with the limits of our own strength and understanding. It's easy to believe in God when life is smooth and our circumstances are easy, but suffering brings a different kind of test. It invites us to dig deeper, to seek comfort and strength from sources beyond ourselves. Many people who endure suffering find that their faith becomes more authentic, shaped by resilience and trust rather than by convenience. This resilience is not something that always comes easily. Suffering can bring us to the very edge of despair, and many people experience doubt, fear, and even anger toward God. They may feel abandoned, wondering why a loving Creator would allow them to face such pain. These emotions are real, and they're part of the human experience. Yet, in these moments of vulnerability, many find a depth of faith they hadn't known before. As they struggle with their pain, they discover a God who doesn't simply watch from a distance but is present, understanding, and compassionate. The faith that emerges from suffering is often more resilient and more deeply rooted than the faith of comfort. Suffering, in this sense, can also be a reminder of our shared humanity. When we go through pain, we become acutely aware that others face similar struggles. This shared experience fosters empathy, allowing us to connect with others on a deep and genuine level. There's a saying that goes, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Suffering opens our eyes to the reality that everyone carries some burden, and this awareness can inspire us to approach others with compassion and understanding. In fact, many people who endure suffering emerge with a stronger desire to help others. They take their experiences and use them to serve, uplift, and support those around them. Think about people who work as counselors, doctors, social workers, or volunteers. Many of them have gone through personal trials that fuel their passion for helping others. They understand what it means to suffer, and this understanding becomes a source of motivation and compassion. For some, this service becomes a way of bringing light into the darkness, offering others the comfort they themselves long for during their own struggles. We also see this in communities that come together in times of crisis. When natural disasters strike or tragedies unfold, people often unite to offer help, hope, and relief. These acts of compassion and kindness are profound expressions of humanity's ability to respond to suffering. In these moments, people become vessels of God's love, extending care and support to those in need. This response to suffering reminds us that, while pain is real, so is the love that emerges in its wake. Now, let's revisit the idea of free will, which we discussed earlier. Many theologians believe that suffering is, in part, a natural consequence of free will. Because God grants humans the freedom to make their own choices, people have the capacity to act in ways that lead to suffering, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But this freedom also creates opportunities for love, kindness, and courage. It allows people to make choices that reflect their deepest values and beliefs. If God were to eliminate all suffering, it would mean removing this freedom, and with it, the capacity for love to be genuine. Think about it. If love, kindness, and sacrifice were forced, would they still hold the same meaning? Many believe that for love to be authentic, it must be freely chosen, and the same goes for acts of goodness and compassion. It is precisely in the face of hardship that people make some of their most powerful choices, whether it's choosing to forgive, to show mercy, or to offer help. Through suffering, people are given the chance to choose how they will respond, and this choice brings depth and significance to their actions. But beyond human choices, there are types of suffering, like illness, accidents, and natural disasters, that seem beyond human control. These forms of suffering often feel especially perplexing because they appear to strike without reason or justice. Why would God allow such suffering? Here, many turn to the idea that God's understanding surpasses our own. This belief is reflected in Scripture and theology, where it's suggested that God's wisdom encompasses a larger plan, one that we may not be able to see or understand from our limited perspective. Think of a tapestry. From the back, a tapestry might look chaotic, with tangled threads and no clear pattern. But from the front, we see a beautiful, intentional design. Some theologians suggest that, from our human perspective, life often looks like the back of a tapestry. We see the chaos, the tangled threads of suffering and pain, and it's difficult to make sense of it. But from God's perspective, there may be a greater design at work, one that brings purpose to our suffering in ways we cannot yet perceive. This perspective doesn't necessarily make suffering easier to bear, but it can bring comfort to those who trust that there is meaning, even if it's hidden from view. Many people find strength in believing that, though they don't understand why they suffer, they are not suffering alone and that their pain has a place in the greater story. This belief allows some to endure with hope, trusting that one day they may see the purpose behind their pain, even if that understanding doesn't come in this life. Faith in a higher purpose doesn't mean that suffering becomes easy or that it loses its sting. But it does offer a foundation, a reason to keep going when the path is difficult. Through this belief, many find resilience, a sense of hope that sustains them through life's trials. For those who hold to this view, suffering is seen not as meaningless but as part of a journey that leads to growth, compassion, and a deeper understanding of life, love, and faith. In our journey to understand why God allows suffering, we've examined suffering as a potential test of faith, a catalyst for growth, and an invitation to deepen empathy and compassion. We've also considered how the concept of free will and God's greater wisdom may play a role in the presence of suffering. Now, let's take a closer look at a perspective that is especially powerful for people of faith: the belief that suffering, while painful, has a redemptive purpose and points us toward a hope that transcends this life. For many, suffering is not only a part of the human experience, it's a reminder of our ultimate dependence on something greater than ourselves. We often strive to control our lives, to seek comfort, security, and happiness. But suffering can shake these illusions of control, reminding us that, in many ways, we are fragile beings in a vast and unpredictable world. In these moments, people often find themselves reaching out to God, seeking strength, guidance, and comfort. Through suffering, we come face to face with our limitations, and in that vulnerability, we may discover a deeper relationship with the divine. Suffering can also serve as a powerful reminder of our need for community. When we're in pain, we lean on others for support, and in doing so, we create bonds of trust, empathy, and compassion. People often find that, through their suffering, they are brought closer to family, friends, and even strangers who offer help. These connections help alleviate the burden, transforming pain into an experience of shared love and kindness. Suffering, therefore, not only brings us closer to God but also to one another. We begin to see the beauty of human compassion, the strength of communities coming together, and the resilience that emerges when people support each other. This leads to a profound aspect of suffering: its transformative potential. There are countless stories of people who, even after experiencing unimaginable tragedy, found a renewed sense of purpose. Some of the most inspiring individuals throughout history were shaped by suffering. Think of leaders who fought for justice, caregivers who dedicated their lives to helping others, or artists who expressed deep truths through their work. Many of these people were driven by personal experiences of pain. Their suffering opened their hearts in a way that allowed them to impact the world around them. For many, suffering becomes the soil in which empathy, resilience, and compassion grow. But this transformation isn't limited to famous figures or historical icons. Every day, ordinary people experience moments of pain that reshape their lives, bringing new purpose and strength. A mother who loses a child may go on to help other grieving parents. A person who overcomes illness may dedicate their life to healthcare. A survivor of hardship may become a voice for those who feel voiceless. In these cases, suffering, though deeply painful, becomes a bridge that connects their personal story to a broader purpose. By finding meaning in their pain, they create a legacy of hope for others. For those who believe in God, this transformation is often seen as part of God's redemptive plan. While suffering itself may be difficult to comprehend, the good that emerges from it, the love, empathy, and compassion it inspires, can be viewed as a reflection of God's presence. This view doesn't ignore the pain of suffering, but it sees the beauty and strength that can arise from enduring and overcoming hardship. In this way, suffering serves a redemptive purpose, allowing people to turn their pain into something that brings light and healing to the world. Another perspective that offers comfort to many is the belief in an afterlife, where all suffering will ultimately be redeemed. For those of faith, this life is not the final chapter, and suffering is seen as a temporary part of a larger journey. Christianity, for example, holds that through Jesus' own suffering, death, and resurrection, believers are promised a future where God will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. This vision of a world beyond suffering provides a powerful source of hope and strength. For those who hold to this belief, the pain of this life is tempered by the assurance that one day, all suffering will be healed, all losses restored, and all sorrows transformed into joy. The hope of redemption isn't limited to religious believers. Many people, regardless of faith, find comfort in the idea that suffering can lead to growth, healing, and legacy. They look at their experiences as part of a life journey that shapes who they are and how they impact others. Through suffering, people discover inner strength, a sense of purpose, and the capacity to empathize with others in ways they may not have otherwise experienced. This perspective on suffering gives it a meaning that extends beyond the individual, allowing pain to contribute to the well-being of others. Finally, it's important to recognize that even though these perspectives offer meaning and hope, suffering remains a deeply personal and often painful experience. For many, there are no easy answers. Pain can feel isolating, and questions of why may linger for years or even a lifetime. In these moments, faith often becomes a journey of trust rather than understanding. People may not find a clear answer to why they suffer, but they hold to the belief that their pain is not meaningless. In this trust, there is a sense of peace that comes not from having all the answers, but from believing that, somehow, their suffering has a purpose beyond what they can see. For those enduring suffering, faith can be a source of resilience and hope, allowing them to endure with the assurance that they are not alone. They find comfort in the belief that God is present with them, feeling their pain, understanding their sorrows, and providing strength when they have none left. In the Bible, there's a verse that says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." This promise resonates with many, reminding them that even in the darkest moments, they are not abandoned. And though suffering may remain a mystery, it often leads people to profound discoveries about themselves, their faith, and the love that surrounds them. Through suffering, people find a strength that surpasses their own, a compassion that connects them to others, and a hope that carries them forward. The question of why God allows suffering may never have a single, definitive answer, but through trust, reflection, and faith, many find a way to endure and to find meaning in their struggles. In the end, suffering reveals not only the depth of human vulnerability, but also the power of resilience, compassion, and hope. It reminds us of our need for one another and for a relationship with something greater than ourselves. Through the pain, people discover their deepest strengths, their capacity for love, and their place in a larger story of redemption and grace. Whether through personal growth, compassionate service, or an unbreakable bond with God, suffering can be the path that leads to a more profound and lasting sense of purpose. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of one of life's biggest questions. If this video has given you insight or comfort, please remember to like it and subscribe to the channel. Together, let's continue to seek answers to life's greatest mysteries and find hope even in the most challenging moments. Until next time, take care and stay strong on your journey.